He's been doing it. Here.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Town of McCandless meeting of Town Council for June 26, 2023. If all of you could join us, council members, I pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We always start off with the same thing, how we conduct the meetings. We will work together to better our town. We all have an equal voice. We may disagree, but we will do so with civility and respect. Because in the end, we're all neighbors. A few announcements as we get started here. National Night Out, August 1st from 5 to 8 here at Town Hall. Learn about your local police, first responders, and then stick around for activities and food. Looks like we're gonna have a radio station here broadcasting the event as well. Sort of a save the date following that, September 9th will be our annual community day. That's a Saturday. More to follow on that. And then last announcement, we're going to be seeking applicants to serve the 2023-2024 junior council person seat that is open. Candidates must be from town who are high school juniors and seniors. Their term will be the same, will be sort of as coinciding with their school year. If you need some information on our town website is the application process, and I hope we get a few applicants there. Anyone from council have any announcements? No? Okay, seeing none. Okay, first up, public comment on agenda items only for those that are gathered here. If you'd like to make a public comment on any of our agenda items, come up, name and address. You have 5 minutes.
Paul Heckman, 10529 Abbey Lane. I'm here tonight to ask the board to follow the recommendations of the planning commission in denying the modification request to drop the need for bonding the bridge project as far as the trees and sidewalks.
Thank you, Paul. Is there anybody else here from the public that want to make a comment? Okay. Okay. Next up, the meeting minutes from our June 12th meeting were included in the packet. Does anybody have any revisions to those? Hearing none. Floor is open for a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Everyone in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? There. Now we'll go through the reports of committees. Mr. Casey, can you take us through the administration and finance?
Sure, everybody should have had an opportunity to review their check listings. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Question. It's very near the last page, the real estate tax refunds. Curious if we've seen a change in that due to the recent court rulings about the assessments.
Yes, we have, but Tricia,
We are expecting some additional refunds throughout after speaking to the school district. We don't have a final number on that yet or a value to date. They had about 350 across the school district in appeals that were filed as of March 30th. And we're estimating about half of those could be from McCandless.
It just seemed like the number had doubled this month.
Yes, yes. As we get closer, as we get further into the tax year, I'm hoping to meet with Kermit over at the school district to kind of get a final report on that.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think it's substantial though.
No, they're not huge amounts, but the going through the appeal process and everything like
Yes.
that was noticeable.
It could take longer and we won't see we probably won't see a material impact to the current year budget. That value is expected to continue to drop. So we expect additional appeals in future years. But the school district will have a significant impact based on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Spooner.
Thanks.
Okay, then I'd like to make a motion to approve check listing number 5 dated May 1, 2023 to May 31st, 2023, totaling $1,416,725.64 as submitted to each member of council and posted on the bulletin board and town website.
Second. Okay, Mr. Singer, everyone in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Great.
Mr. Casey.
Trish, would you like to review the financial summary and dashboard for us, please?
You all received the May financial summary and dashboard report. It includes revenues and expenditures through the month of May. The only number that I am currently concerned about is the real estate transfer tax, which we are about $500,000 down from last year. We did see a little bit of a recovery in May. We were only down 3%, whereas we had been down up to 60% and 70% in other months. We will have a budget update in July, and we may need to address potentially $250,000 in that field, but I'm hoping that earned income tax is going to make that up. But I'd like a couple more months of real estate transfer tax through the summer, which is the heavier months, to really solidify how much I think will be down for the full year. We didn't experience some of the commercial transfers that we've had in prior years, and so there's always the chance that that could pop in through the summer. But overall, I think we're going to maintain budget for all other items. There are some timing differences. And we also do have the savings so far with the snow for this year, which that's about $300,000 at this point. So we'll continue to monitor that. And of course, there's always November and December, but Jeff and I are keeping an eye on that number throughout the summer as well. Obviously, we've purchased the amount of salt that we need to at this point. Any other questions on the financial dashboard report?
Thank you, Ms. Greathouse. Communications report.
Communications report is in your packet. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Raccoon made hit, huh?
That definitely was a for a local municipality, if you want to define viral. It's as good as it might get.
You want to explain to people what you're talking about?
If no one saw the video, Officer Ray of our McCandless Police Department helps a raccoon who had a jar stuck on his head remove it via a stick. And we had a nice video of it that we shared out there and got some coverage on our local news stations. Fun.
Thank you, Mr. O'Malley. Okay, McCandless Industrial Development Authority, Dr. Rapa isn't here, but there was no meeting. Next, we'll go to President Carl.
Same thing, Jack, no meeting. They're only quarterly of COG.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on administrative and financial committee items? If not, then I will cede to you, Ms. Eisenreich.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning Committee. RJ, your report?
Good evening. We have a big night tonight. There may be a little ordinance agenda item up for you. I'll do a couple of the sort of administrative cleanup discussion items on that at the end of my report. In the meantime, we do also have one plan on the agenda. It's one that you've seen before, as they say, same plan, different day. It is the final subdivision and land development plan for the Ridge, formerly known as the Marwa property, still for 19 units as single family units, as was approved in the preliminary plan, and then subsequently when they came back around for the final plan the first time. The reason that it is back here again is because there was a contingency fee in lieu that was calculated at the last final plan approval, which was based upon, we've seen in writing that PennDOT thinks that it's reasonable that a sidewalk should be able to be built along Perry Highway, the external sidewalk for the property line, this plan. However, just in case for some reason they don't approve the highway occupancy permit, or HOP as they're called, we wanted to make sure that there was a fee in lieu that had to be paid by the developer, because if we were waiving the sidewalk outright, which I believe was the original request during the preliminary plan stage, we would assess a fee in lieu anyway, to be used for construction for pedestrian facilities elsewhere in the town. So our engineers put together a calculation. The developer had some concerns. Ultimately, they did not accept that as a condition of approval in the last time that we saw this final plan. However, as they've submitted everything else, the same, we had some conversations between our engineers, the developers' engineers, getting some quotes on materials and opinions of costs of labor. for traffic control, since we just did that sidewalk up the hill ourselves. And have arrived at a number that is a bit lower at around 95,000 as compared to about 150,000. But to my understanding, it is mutually agreeable between the developer and our engineers. So the motions that are up for your consideration on this plan, and also we have a representative from the development that's here, if you have any additional questions, but the motions that are up for consideration for this plan tonight are 2 modification requests. One being to allow for a fill slope of 2.5 height to 1, or horizontal to 1 vertical, which is a bit steeper than our 3 to 1, but still, engineered feasibly okay with the town engineer. The reason that they're doing this behind a couple lots is to save 4 large trees at the request of the neighbors. So the planning commission again did recommend that you all grant that modification request. The second one is from the developer to ask to not have to bond the street trees and sidewalks due to the fact that they are typically constructed at the end of the development. The planning commission again recommended that you do not grant that modification request because that is true of all developments, and those are typical items that we require everybody to bond. Overall, they did again recommend approval of the plan, so same votes as last time. And we will get to that later on in the agenda. Moving on to maybe what is my last zoning and Saldo modernization project update, or at least a guaranteed standing item, potentially on this report, if you all do adopt it tonight. Just, calling out that there are still some administrative things on the back end that once the ordinance is, approved and adopted, those can then occur, such as updating guidance documents. We have a couple, quite a few actually, requirement sheets for like every type of accessory structure that people can build, fences, things like that. Some things are the same, but of course others are different. And so my staff and I will be working on creating new guidance documents that would adhere to the ordinance, as well as eventually updating all of our applications. So they're brand shiny new and a little easier to use with our new Saldo for our development side anyway. And then also we're going to be working with our online code hosting vendor, eCode 360. If you've ever looked up our ordinances online and not had to scroll through a 350-page PDF, congratulations, you've used eCode. Really great service, but it does take some time to get the ordinances all formatted correctly, so they're out of a Word or a PDF document and into the eCode format. There's also costs associated with that, and the Saldo came in at about what we would typically expect, a few $1,000s for an ordinance of that size. But the zoning piece is a bit more expensive because due to the fact that we used form-based code, which is graphic-based, has diagrams, is a little more dynamic than sort of the traditional code we're moving away from. They have a different level of the platform that will correctly display all of those graphics and diagrams the way that basically we wrote them into the code. So the cost is a little bit higher than I was anticipating. We're going to be working with them to figure out how we can most appropriately represent the code in the meantime. It might be linking to a PDF, saying disregard this section until we get it all, budgeted out and accounted for. But we're still deciding exactly what that's going to look like. In the meantime, we can add some basic notes to the site just to let people know, where they should be looking. But they did say that they were going to work with us to make sure that somehow people can access the information in the meantime until we're prepared to make the full purchase for the upgraded online code. So I know that's all really boring administrative stuff, but it's exciting work, and that at least we got here. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'm sure we'll have some questions for me later on at least one of these. So we good? Okay.
Thank you. Liaison reports, Mr. Singer, Planning Commission.
I think RJ gave a good rundown of where we're at with planning commission. I believe there are some plans coming up for the next month. Is that correct?
Yes, we've got quite a few larger ones, actually. It's gonna be a longer meeting.
We'll have more for next month. Any questions for myself? That's all.
Thank you. Ms. Clunin, zoning hearing board.
Thank you. The approved minutes from the April meeting are in your packet. The May minutes have not been approved yet. So they'll be available as soon as they are. If there's any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any public comments on planning and zoning committee items?
Good evening, council members and staff.
Please
I'm
get-
here to ask for Ellen Wright, 9635
Thank you.
Old Coomer Road, Allison Park, PA 15101. I'm here to ask for a delay on the zoning vote today. With the delay as council members, you have an opportunity to initiate a conversation with your constituents about what the new zoning districts mean for their property values and their quality of life. Since the proposed code was posted in March, has any member of council invited constituents to learn the details of their proposed new zoning district? Since the proposed code was posted in March, has any member of council initiated a feedback session for residents to comment on specific sections of the proposed code? Has any member requested that the contract with Michael Baker be enforced so that their constituents may access an interactive map which would show their property's new zoning classification? The county does give feedback and they sent their comments on May 2nd. The county planning department had approximately 30 to 50 comments on the proposed zoning code and on the proposed subdivision and land development ordinance. These comments were not shared with council prior to the regular meeting on May 8th, nor were they shared with council prior to the public hearing on May 22nd. Council has not been provided with a written response for each one of the county's comments, which range from asking if the proposed code uses identical language to the state's municipal plan code to questioning if the proposed code aligns to the town's 2019 implementable comprehensive plan. Because the implementable plan does not call for a new zoning code for a new subdivision and land use ordinance, the code does not align with the 2019 implementable code. At the June 2019 Planning Code Commission meeting regarding the implementable plan municipal code, the consultant specifically said no new code was needed. There were some places that might need to be revised. It also does not align because one of the 5 keys in the McCandless's implemental code is preservation of green space. Not only does the proposed code not reference the comprehensive plan's green space key, but in direct contrast, the comprehensive plan has a whole section asking for proposal consultants to address how McCandless is more than a park. Tree Pittsburgh talks about how trees increase property values. Here are some more specifics. The planting guide, which is very nice, was not originally planned to be part of a legal document. So it does not include a variety of plants that one would see in Pennsylvania's, the state's native planting guide, which also divides plants into possible planting conditions such as shady, sunny, which any gardener knows is important. Is that the time I have left? Okay. The proposed new zoning code lists 3 new districts called low, medium, and high density, which will be the zoning classification most of the McCandless residents in the no code, neither in the subsection or at the end where the definitions are found. There's no definition of density. In the old code, the density of each district was defined. Who had the ultimate decision for deciding what was in what zoning district and the names of the zoning districts? The county also had questions about the zoning districts. According to the current code, to build in a floodplain where people need assistance and emergency permission from council is needed. Is that still part of the new plan? And a few final additional comments. I keep talking about the process because the new zoning code has been impacted by the process. The current code is a living document reflecting changes made over the years. The plan is to pass the proposed code and then make amendments. It sounds like we're doing the same thing. Why not keep the current code and make amendments? If the saldo is a problem, then lift it out of the current document and rename it section 11. Creating a false shortage, people were told they had to wait for the new zoning code. Why not have people do the variance so they can move on? The unadopted code is being used to make decisions at the zoning hearing board. A few people were involved with the process. Council met with the staff and their consultants to learn about the code. And if we're doing a new code, then let's do a visionary code which addresses topography and watersheds. In conclusion, it is our home and property values. Delay this vote or vote no as the members of council, as you as our members accountant, invite us to join you in the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Please state your name and address.
Michael Bronski, 136 Monster Avenue. I was, likewise, I wanted to ask you to change and not vote on that right now. I checked out all the stuff they have online and everything that's happened to date. And it's very, very confusing. The old code was pretty straightforward. The old zoning code, I could understand it, I could read it, I knew my way around it pretty well. This thing here, you have to get some kind of education before you really understand what's going on. Okay, it's got tables and charts and all this stuff, and I have a really hard time navigating it and see what's happening. And so I'm sure everybody else in the township does too, because I actually knew the old zoning code pretty well. This one's tough. Another thing that bothers me about this too is that the people are all going to have their places rezoned, basically, right? Everything's getting rezoned. And right now, the way it is, you have to notify people when you're rezoning the property. Nobody's notified anybody anything. I've been in the neighborhood, not one of my neighbors knows this is going on. I didn't know until fairly recently. Okay, I really think you owe everybody in the township the courtesy of letting them know this is going on. Your property is going to be rezoned. The whole zoning structure is going to change, and here's how it's going to change. And to be straightforward and upfront, I wish you would take people or some expert to make a chart that shows the difference between the old one and the new one. I have a very, very, very difficult time referencing things from the old code to the new code. It's really, really tough. So for those reasons, I just don't think, I really, really would ask you to delay voting on this. I don't know what the hurry is. The old codes work there, it's just fine. We can keep it forever if we wanted to. And we don't really have to change it, that you can change it all you want, but for the 1970s, it was changed. 1985, it was changed significantly. I know that. And then I don't know why you have to throw the entire thing out and do it over again. It seems like a waste of time to me. I know I'm way too late in the process here, and everybody has their minds made up, okay? But I'm gonna speak my mind anyway. You're gonna hear that. I think you're probably setting yourself up for a lot of grief from your constituents if you don't do something to educate them more so on what's going on with this. Okay, because it was really a surprise to me, and I'm sure it's going to be a much bigger surprise to everybody else, especially after you vote on it. After you vote on it, okay, you know, the horse is out of the barn and you got to live with whatever heck you got. I would ask you for your own self, for the township and for the residents, just to postpone this. Let's get a better handle on what it is. If you vote on it a year from now, who cares? It's not that big a deal. Let's do it right. Let's do it right one time. Now, thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments on planning and zoning? Okay, if there are none, I'll move on to recreation. Ms. Schweiger?
Okay, first up, we have the liaison reports. We have the activities advisory committee, which is me. Nothing new to report. Oh, okay.
The next AAC meeting will be on July 3rd, which is Monday. We did have a typo in the minutes and the agenda that was posted. So the calendar, the town calendar is correct and the previous resolution. So we will hold that meeting at 7:30 on Monday, July 3rd.
You confirmed it with Libby.
Yes, I
Okay,
have confirmed with Libby.
Okay, so that's one adjustment. But other than that, we're just focused on Community Day and then the Winter Festival that's coming up. So only two things are really going on right now. Up next, Finance Development and Promotional Committee for the Heritage Center, Marianne.
Thank you. We met on Wednesday. There's just a few things. The June 17th drive-in movie was a huge success. There's another one planned for July 15th. That one will be free. There was a charge on June 17th. There will not be on July 15th. July 20th, August Wilson presentation, and a reminder that the gala for the Heritage Center is November 25th. The I have something here. The McCandless Community Association is in the process of being converted for use by the FDPC. This is not a done deal. I'm just putting it out there that it's in process. Mr. Wall has been voted chairman of that organization. And they're rewriting the bylaws and changing various things on the McCandless Community Association. The intergovernmental letter, is that what it is? Intergovernmental letter
I think the intergovernmental agreements.
agreement, yeah, is still in process with the solicitor and will come to the committee at some point or the council. That's what's reported in our minutes or was reported at that meeting.
Understand, that's been discussed at length. I don't know what other draft document exists out there, but I have to address it.
Okay, thank you. And again, the Heritage Committee would like to thank Superintendent Schoeneman for their great work in supporting Treasures in the Trunk, the movie, all the cleanup around the Heritage Center, and all the effort they put into keeping things looking nice. And there should be a sign in front of the Heritage Center with town announcements installed shortly. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any public comments at this point for the Recreation Committee? No public comments? Okay, that's the conclusion of our reports.
Now we'll move on to the town manager's report.
A copy of the town manager's report was emailed to members of council included in the public packet. If you had any questions about the report, please let me know.
Questions, anybody? No. Brian. Engineers report.
Similar, the engineer's report was included in the council packet. I think if you have any questions, we have Dan and Kelly here from Gateway tonight about anything in their report.
Very good. Any questions? Okay, moving on. Town attorney's report. Let me guess what you're gonna say.
That is exactly that, other than thank you for having me tonight instead of Solicitor Cornwall. Happy to be here. We provided a report in your packets. If you have questions, there will be an executive session later and I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to old business. This here is, the first one is just us tweaking the tech committee to be, what are we, about an ad hoc committee.
Yes, so the language in the resolution was to change it from being what is currently a full committee, subcommittee with public meetings monthly scheduled monthly. This will create an ad hoc committee with two of the current members, so no one is getting dropped from the tech committee. And it'll be able to meet when needed for town administration, town departments to work on any type of information technology, IT work that we need to implement or explore.
My only concern, I read through the ordinance and it seems like we still have a formal committee with it. You know, with appointments and everything else, and I hate to continue to burden council with this. With interviews and appointments and everything else, I thought, you know, their recommendation was a true ad hoc. I mean, I don't care if the president convenes a committee and this and that, but it just seems like we're making more government out of it when everyone's telling us to make it less. So that was my only concern was, I mean, it's still set up to have a formal 3-year terms, 3 people. You know, the only difference is there's no scheduled meetings. And I thought their recommendation, and when I watched the meeting last week, it was more of a, let's let this thing sunset off. Am I wrong in that? I mean,
No,
I'm asking that of council too. What do we want to see with this? I mean, we're struggling to get people to apply for it now. And if we're going to continue with that, that's not what anyone wanted, was what I thought. So, I mean, my suggestion is, you know, I think the ordinance should truly say it's an ad hoc committee going forward, not a formal committee under council.
That's what I heard last time. That they wanted to sunset it, basically, and then just, if it was needed, president could call the standing members, or whatever you want to call them, together, the existing members, I guess, if they're willing to stay, kind of as an ad hoc, if you needed them to do something. That was my understanding of what the committee was asking for.
I have a question, with it being, if it goes to what you're speaking of, which I agree with, the ad hoc type situation, would it still be posted at their meeting times and have public access to those meetings?
I think the intention of an ad hoc committee would be that would not be a scheduled advertised public meeting as it currently is. Which there was an update to this that wasn't in the public packet that we were working on today, so it didn't get to you guys anyway, but it addresses some of those things.
Yeah.
So I think, with that, I
Make
think
a
if I were
motion to-
tabling it,
Table.
I'll make a motion to table.
Second.
Second, everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks for the updates. Thank you, Ryan.
Okay. Next one is another housekeeping one. We'll be extending the term of the.
yes, this is an ordinance. Every time that you create an authority in the state of Pennsylvania, you essentially give them 50 years of existence. The Camas Franklin Park Ambulance Authority is getting close to 50 years. So this extends it for another 50 years. This allows them to apply for any loans or anything they might need that's past their technical time of existence.
Any questions, for Brian, on that one? Nope.
I'd like
Or
to make a
some-
motion. I'd like to make a motion to adopt tentatively identified ordinance number 1539, amending the articles of incorporation of the McCandless Franklin Park Ambulance Authority.
Second,
Second, Mrs. Eichenreich. Everyone in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up, this is our new ordinance for the planning in South Oak. We've had a lot of time and effort into this. Questions of RJ, Brian, or anyone else? Very good. The floor is open for a motion if anyone so chooses.
I'll make a motion to adopt the tentatively identified ordinance number 1540, amending, revising, and restating Part 13, Planning and Zoning Code, revising the regulations regarding zoning and land use within the town, inserting a new Part 11 entitled Town of McCandless Subdivision and Land Development Regulations, providing regulations regarding future land development within the town.
We have a second.
Second,
Yeah, everyone in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Motion carries. Very good. Take a short second to stop here. RJ, thank you for all of your effort. It had to be 2.5 years or more. I know the first year was advocating for it.
Yeah.
The last year and a half was to get through the process. Thank you for guiding council. Thank you for guiding the community. Thank you for guiding Michael Baker through it. Thank you for your passion on such an esoteric subject. We know it got through because of you. And we're better off for it. So thank you for all of your efforts.
Thank you.
You never thought this day would come. Huh?
No, but it did. It did.
Okay, moving on to new business here. RJ, do you want to brief us on this one?
Oh,
Thank you kind of did in your report, but
Yeah.
tee it up again for us.
So we do have Mr. Lucci here. Did you want to do?
I can follow your lead, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, so Sandy, if you could just throw me co-host, I'll put the PowerPoint up in case he needs it. Thank you. This is the same one that they use for the planning commission, but it is the same plan that was presented to the planning commission. So I don't have too much to add. I feel like I kind of hit all the highlights anyway. In my staff report, speaking of staff reports, if any of you want, have any questions about sort of how it got from point A to point Z, the meetings, various things that it's been at. There is a specific staff report to this development that was also in the packets, in that it outlines if you do approve the plan, the recommended conditions of approval, being of course that fee in lieu issue, the contingency, not waiving the sidewalk, but if for some reason it isn't built, as well as a recommendation to approve modification request number 1 only. And sort of our other standard contingencies and condition that, you know, the motion is written that they will be included as outlined in the staff report should you approve it. So if anyone has questions about more specifics of the development, I would defer to Mr. Lucci here. For those answers.
This might sound dumb, but under B, we're being asked to waive.
Oh, I mean, my recommendation would be that you do not approve that. I think
Okay,
probably our
okay.
attorney would say that you should make the motion in the affirmative and then vote no if you wish to deny.
I just wanted to clarify that. Okay.
Yes.
Technically, most motions tend to be in the affirmative. If they do fail, you move on to a negative, but based on your rules as established by your president council. You can handle it however it's most appropriate for.
We write them as the approve / reject or approve / deny, just to let people that are reading it, you know, at home know that it's not a done deal. You
Right.
all have the choice.
Right, okay.
So for item B, you recommend us to do what? To
Reject.
approve, to reject it or approve it, and if you.
Reject it.
We'll get there.
Let's do.
I'm there.
Let's just do it.
I'll make a motion to,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
have a question for our solicitor. And that is, we've already made these motions and accepted them on January the 23rd. These exact, so do we have to get rid of them or do they just expire or what happens to the three motions we've already made?
The plan has been resubmitted with these minor changes based on the bonding. Is that
Well,
correct?
so these are the same, actually. They had submitted both of these before. But the plan is resubmitted because the approval you previously granted in January was
Would have-
voided by them not accepting all of the conditions of approval at that time.
Just wanna
So
make sure
essentially,
process is
the
correct.
processing, this is a new step before you, new approval,
We still need.
new modifications, you need to redo those. You can. Similar to the plan as a whole, from when it was previously approved, you can see those as voided. And move forward as if they never happened, essentially.
I'll make a motion to approve modification request number 1 to allow a fill slip of 2.5 to 1 in a limited area behind lots 1 and 2 as shown in the plans in order to save 4 large trees at the rear of the property. If granted, the approval is conditioned upon full plan approval being obtained.
Second,
Second, Carolyn. Everyone in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So best practice on this one is if we want to reject it like is recommended.
So you may request a motion to approve. If there is a motion, you may, at a second, you may hold discussion on it, and you may still vote to deny.
But we
By
can
not
also do a motion to
passing.
reject.
You could do a motion to reject. It will not be improper to follow it that way. Typically, Robert's rules have to make motions in the affirmative, but it's not mandatory that you do so. So I would recommend in this instance, you proceed as is best fitted to your comprehension of what you're voting on, so long as everybody on the group is clear about what they're voting on.
Done that way.
We'll be fine.
Motion to reject modification request number 2 to waive the requirement for the applicant to bond the street trees and sidewalks. If granted, the approval is conditioned upon full plan review being obtained.
second,
Okay. Okay, everyone in favor of rejecting the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
aye,
I would like to make a comment on that too, if I would. And this goes to the developer. You know, if we don't have a bond, we have no way of getting you to put in sidewalks. There's a sidewalk missing in North Meadows that has been missing for 5 years. And the rest of the sidewalk is all up through the community and the adjacent community, and then just little piece of sidewalk. So if you have it in your heart to get that put in, that would be appreciated.
I could take an advisement and tell the developer on that.
Thank you.
Yes, no problem.
Enough said.
Okay. Next up is, what are we putting in here?
This is gonna be these were the modifications that you just went through for the final subdivision land development application. This would be the motion for approval or denial of the full application, subject to those modifications you just discussed.
Sure. So I have a question here. I know on the previous, our engineer had put up $190,000 number fee in lieu of amount. The developer put up a $63,000 and it seems that we have settled at 94,000. I think a question to our town engineer would be why, just explain to me how we ended up with this number, I guess, if that's okay.
So Dan Dizer, Gateway Engineers, your town engineer. The reason we are where we are today is the last time that we looked at this, the developer's engineer did not submit an estimate at all. So I just came up with the estimate on my own. The municipality's planning code allows a developer to submit verified bids from his contractor and from estimates that his engineer provides, and then my job is supposed to be to validate them. So the developer here has provided bona fide bids to substantiate this. In fact, his bids are less than his engineer proposed for the actual work, for concrete work.
Sure.
Where we differed in our assessment of the whole thing was the traffic control. He assumed that he could set up traffic control one time, do the whole project, and then be done. I told him that was not possible and the PennDOT would make you do it daily, and that's why we agreed in the middle. So I feel that it's fair because I think he's gonna get the permit anyway. He's gonna put the sidewalk in. I don't
Which is
think
what we want anyway.
there's a risk for the town. It's what we want anyway. We don't want to do.
Thank you.
To that point. Last time I had the question is, why did we pay over $400,000 for the piece of sidewalk above the hill across from Ingomar Fire Hall? And now we were only going to charge $190,000 for your section. And you said, well, we use prevailing wages and they don't necessarily need to do that. So we already whittled it down in my mind from 400,000 to 200,000, 190.
Right.
And now we're taking off another 100,000, but I drive down that hill every day and I look, and half of that hill is going to require a retaining wall of sorts. I don't care. I'm no engineer, but if you look at the top part of the hill, you have, it's not necessarily a retaining wall, but it's with New Jersey barriers. So are you telling me they're not going to need some way to hold back that hillside when they cut into it and put in a sidewalk?
It's my understanding, and I don't want to speak for the design, but David's here to speak to the design, but as they proposed it, it would be elevated above the road such that they would not need a retaining wall in the back. So they're actually going to position it up. It's going to require some excavation, which they've included in the bid, but it's not going to need a retaining wall.
Good
So
answer.
they've come up with an alignment that to make it work. The bottom line is it's on the plan. It's required to be put in. If they don't put it in, I don't see that happening because like I said, the permit from PennDOT, as I've seen it, PennDOT's agreed to the concept of let the sidewalk be put in.
Now, when you put the piece in across from the fire hall, you had a devil's edge on it. Would this have a devil's edge on it?
Your devil's edge is the piece of
Barrier between the curb and the sidewalk.
Yeah, is the-
We're not showing that. We don't like, it's like a raised like curb, you're saying? Is that what you're?
and
No,
the
no.
Devil's edge will be the grass strip.
Correct.
Oh, okay. What we're putting some of the sidewalk on the high side of the berm area to get around. I think there's a pole for a signage
Right.
there. We're going
Right.
around that side, that area with the sidewalk. And then we're going parallel down 19 with the sidewalk.
Well, that part is easy. It's the more dangerous section that's right next to the entrance and on that hillside down.
Yeah, Sarver, to Sarver Lane, you're asking?
Well,
Is that what-
When you get down to the bottom and you go around the pool, you essentially have a devil's edge, but I'm talking about where you're close to the hill. Okay, we were required to have a devil's edge up around Longview because of the speed and the dangerousness of that section of highway. So if we require it there, why wouldn't we require it further down the hill?
RJ has the plan up there. You can see it.
I want to orient us, please, RJ, real quick.
Yeah, and this this doesn't necessarily mean it's the final approval by PennDOT.
Yeah, exactly.
It's in for
exactly.
permit right now. They may require it to put in, but the key on this.
Well, I don't think PennDOT required it. It was your gentleman, your engineer that decided that if he was putting his initials on it, he wanted the devil's edge in there.
Well, but that was in deliberations back and forth with PennDOT too.
Okay.
Let me pose a question here, since this is part of the grading. And you'll have to grade to put the sidewalk in, will he not be subject to 3-to-1 slopes in any grading he does in that area? That is a condition of our. So if he installs without a 3-to-1 slope, he'll be in violation of our grading code, correct?
Yes.
So you understand that the sidewalk has to be installed with 3-to-1 slopes in any grading that you touch.
Yes, I believe that we met the ordinance with our grading.
And
that's out there.
your proposed pricing includes that grading of a 3-to-1 slope on that edge. Okay,
It does say 3-to-1 here, at least.
I mean, our grading code is 3-to-1 on any slopes unless approved by a geotech.
Mhm.
So any cut in of any grading of sidewalk has to have a 3-to-1 slope, both top and bottom. Okay,
Okay, I mean, I know we tried to put it right next to the curb that's out there in most areas, because as you further get closer towards the lots, it's gonna be steeper,
sure.
so.
I want to make sure you're aware of it, that's all.
I would say, and maybe Anna, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I would. Let's say that they get down the road into the, the design, and for some reason they would need a 2.5 for what PennDOT has required. Or requested rather. Potentially, we bring that back to council and allow them to vote directly on the modification request at that time.
It'll depend certain on timing, and
Yes.
extent of changes and things of that nature, but something like that would not be a change, it would just be automatic. Yep.
Plus, I mean,
No.
this is an HOP permit, we need to get a permit to put the sidewalk. in.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
I might as well stand up there. Apparently my comments were ignored from the January 23rd because I didn't see them in the engineer's letter. I wanted them to agree to not bring any vehicles through the Oak Ridge and adjacent plans. And that's not in there, so we might,
Well,
want-
we would handle that if that's a condition the council wants to impose.
we agreed
you know-
to it on the 23rd.
We put that in the development.
Can we put that in the staff report even so that it would be?
Well, you know what? I apologize because to be honest, I forgot that you had done that, but as soon as you said it, I remember. So what I would suggest
I believe
is
there might have been some other conditions as well.
we can go back and check
We can
those.
amend that staff report with some of your conditions.
Well, I would just recommend that you actually verbalize it as part of a motion tonight.
Can I ask, sir, are you amenable to the conditions that were previously agreed
Yes.
upon at the other meeting?
Yes, you're saying to have we cannot have access other than Route 19. So you're-
It
I
would-
mean, I'm not talking just the big heavy stuff. What happens is, I live in this neighborhood and the neighbors at the bottom complain whenever there's workers working in the neighborhood. They have old trucks or heavy trucks and they gun it at the bottom of the hill and they go flying up the hill so they can get up the hill. So if we have construction workers going every day into your construction site, I'm concerned that it's going to cause a lot of anxiety with our residents and maybe accidents. So I'd like to have the sign posted, no equipment or.
No construction vehicle access through this roadway, which developers typically do in other
Yeah,
instances.
I don't think we have a problem with that, I don't.
Okay, the exact wording that we had in the minutes was acknowledgement that no construction vehicles will be permitted to traverse the streets of Oak Ridge, Longview, Hillcrest, and Forest View, and if they are, the roads have to be bonded.
Okay, were there any other conditions imposed at that meeting that are listed on the minute?
Not other than the ones that were recommended by the planning commission, which at that time was the different fee in lieu.
Okay.
So that is now included here, and then acknowledgement that if the adverse possession claim is which is going on between one of the neighbors and the developer, is adjudicated in favor of Mr. Brian Wright, that any material changes to the plan be examined to ensure compliance with town requirements. And what that means is there's a discussion, I guess, about the back end of, I think, lots 1 and 2 near where those very large
Correct.
trees are. If a portion of those properties would then become Mr. Wright's property, then we would allow the plan to update the setback distance and the lot area without
voiding the plan, provided that it was still compliant with our ordinances, which back then I recall it was pretty safe bet that that would. not-
So can we
Yeah.
confirm that they won't move any earth in that 38 feet?
Well, that's what the first modification request was for.
Yeah, we
was to
No,
allow them to
that's
avoid
fine.
that.
That's behind that. I'm saying the 38 feet that's in contention.
Oh,
I want to make sure that they don't move any dirt on
I think-
the adverse possession property itself.
what we had discussed with Anna before was that at this time, because it hasn't been adjudicated, that is not for the town to make a decision on.
I'm just asking them if, do you have any plans? What can we do to protect Mr. Wright's interests? In the event that you guys decide that you're gonna rip up soil that he's already had stuff on.
Yeah, we're not touching that area because we're trying to keep the trees that, that are there. So, I mean, I think there's an area that we're gonna leave to remain and not be touched. And that's where those areas of those 4 large trees. So.
Does that satisfy your concerns, Mr. Wright?
To some extent, I just like, I thought we kind of had this ironed out, back in January. I just like, but I know it's a new person now, it's some new people on council, but that, just like assurances that 38 feet, because our contention and advice from legal counsel is that, to any observer, the most casual observer, that we are occupying that land, that 38 feet. And it's not upon us to proactively seek adjudication on that claim. If the applicant wanted to remove us, they would need to, file an action to eject us from there, and then, we would be able to respond to that. But our understanding is that we do not proactively need to, have that adjudicated to claim it as ours. Because, as I said, even the most casual person could see that we are on that land as it stands right now and have been for the last 22, 23 years.
So the language that I read was directly from the minutes from the January meeting. So that would have been the official motion that we adopted and how we said it in January.
Does that adequately protect Mr. Wright?
At this point, not having the conditions written out in front of me at the moment, I would like to, because this is essentially reconsidering parts of the application that have not changed. I think that I would recommend that we
table.
take a closer look at that issue. And review it to ensure that you are complying fully with your requirements under the MTC and that you're properly re-adopting your opinion from the past meeting with analysis based on the actual changes. And not subjecting.
So
Are we still in time with our timeline?
We have a couple months, actually. This blew through the planning commission.
well, if we're gonna table it, there is one other thing I would like to ask. And that is, has anybody spoken to the power company about their substation below your spillway?
Not that I know of what it was. You think there would be an issue with?
Well,
Work.
it's not up to me. It's up to the power company that has a substation that serves thousands of customers. That's right below
They-
the emergency spillway.
Yeah.
You know,
They looked at our utility plans and, things of that nature. So
well, they would look at utility plans, but
Yeah.
I'd like somebody from the power company to specifically say, we're not in harm's way, no problem. Or we need to make sure that there's a deflection piece or something in here.
I think we're tying in, I think our outlet structure, doesn't it go into an inlet, a PennDOT inlet? It doesn't go down over the hill. That's.
Well, it goes down over the hill where the power substation is.
He's speaking of the emergency spillway.
Where it's going.
Yeah,
We're.
my wife's from Johnstown, so this is near and dear to me.
We were thinking that that's where the emergency spillway is, but I think we're hoping that it would go into an inlet rather than going down over Sarver Lane. Is what we were,
Well, it's not up to me and you for has hopes. We need to draw this to the attention of the power company and make sure that they're aware of the potential danger.
Dan, is there precedence for that? Where
Precedents for,
a landowner going to another parcel and saying, what if this happens? Like, is this a slippery slope?
well. I mean, in theory, we're not sending any more water to them, but I understand Jack's concern. I think it's more putting them on notice that this is the way we're gonna build our plan. And if you need to take any precautions yourself. My understanding is the downstream property, if they're adjoining some sort of water, they need to be responsible for protecting themselves. So it's more discussion as opposed to, I think it's good, it's a good point. And I think we can ask the developer to at least make them aware of it. I don't think there's any requirement we
Yeah,
can.
I
make
like your
offsite.
language of just make them
Yeah.
aware of it and not a
Yes.
requirements. Yeah.
I think that's probably a better way to pose it. Get an acknowledgement from them that they're aware of it.
Yeah, all right,
Yeah.
I mean, we can send a letter to them.
Power companies aren't quick to react.
They're not, they're not quick,
That's
quick to
that's
react.
probably maybe they'll look at it.
Send a letter and, yeah.
They'll look at it when they have to come out and they go, well, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And so, sir, if that was added as a condition after, I'm assuming this is tabled, you would have no objection to that.
Yeah, to send a letter to, to the power companies, we don't have a problem with that.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to table this.
I just have a real fast
Yes,
question. I agree here. We spoke about PennDOT kind of giving the head nod to the possibility of a sidewalk along that stretch. Is that in writing that PennDOT said,
They have,
yeah, this can happen?
The developer back in the first go round submitted an email from PennDOT that said, you know, it's a conceptual understanding,
Okay.
not a full review,
Right.
but based on our conceptual understanding, yes, we believe this can be built.
Okay, I just didn't want it to be,
Yeah.
you know,
It was not a
someone who
surprise.
answered the phone and said, yeah, that should work.
You know,
They've actually made application for the permit.
Okay, okay, I want to make sure it was in writing. We have
Review
documentation.
comments, and there was nothing derogatory related to the sidewalk installation. It was just normal and all that stuff. Am I correct?
That's correct, yeah,
That's-
yeah, we're.
When do you expect the permit? You know,
Yeah, I'm hoping soon, but I'm not gonna give you an exact date when we should have that.
I'll second Jack's motion.
So, yeah, so everyone in favor of tabling the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is that okay?
It's fine.
Okay, very good.
quick procedural question just for me, when we write the motions next month. Does the tabled motion have to be identical, or may we incorporate the things that Councilman Casey mentioned from our January 23rd add-ons?
So the overall, no, the wording of the motion does not need to be identical. It can be updated with learned information. You could also, if you wanted, have separate, a separate motion on the conditions and allow some discussion and votes on the specific conditions to be considered separately.
All right.
You're gonna work on this between now and then in your new staff report. So my thought is just update the staff report and the date, and then that would encompass everything to carry for the next one.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Last item, is there any public comments on non-agenda items? If there is, step on up, name and address, 5 minutes, seeing none, no one. Okay, meeting adjourned into executive discussion session to discuss legal matters. No further action will be taken. Thank you.